Yo, check out my website, www.theclownthompson.net. That's clown spelled with K as you see here. As you see, here are my rants here. I'll be more and more regular in posting rants in the future. You see what I have going on here. Also, you can also get your merch here at www.cafepress.com. Search for the Clown Time Sports. You see here I have sweatshirts, hoodies, baby gear, mugs, t-shirts. So just come on over and grab yourself some merch.
Welcome to tonight's NBA free agency edition of the Clown Out Podcast. Please check me out on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Even if you do not agree with either I or my guest has to say tonight, but either event, once you do that, once you interact with me and subscribe and get all the good stuff, the shorts and everything, you're gonna be glad you did, and I'm gonna be glad you did. All right, so I teased NBA already, so let's just get to it. I'm bringing my guys, or at least one half of my guys back, my NBA guys back. Y'all know him from past excursions on the Week of Adjustment show. This one half of the duo, Jared Singleton, is back in the house to talk all things NBA. Jared, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing well, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, you got it. So, when we last talked, man, you, myself, and Kevin, uh, we were talking about the crazy NBA trades that went down. That was before all the free agency signings and everything, and how, you kind of teased when we last talked about the CBA, how this all that those inner workings work, and how much cash actually shelled out. Because I mean, we look at all these signings, right? Jeremy Grant, 160 mil over 5 years. Fred VanVleet, which I know contract amuses you, 128 mil over 3 years. Kyrie Irving, 126, 3 years. Draymond Green, 100 million years. Well, I'm sorry, 100 million over 4 years, not 100 million years. And my favorite one by far, Cameron Johnson, 94.5 mil over 4 years. So, with honorable mention to Dylan Brooks for 86 million over 4 years. I still understand how in hell any team, let alone Houston, could give a dude with a broke ass jump shot $86 million. But that's not here nor there. I mentioned in the past that I chose the wrong line of work. Like, we've seen all these NBA contracts, stupid NBA contracts doled out. Hey, I'm not mad at the player. I just hate the game that they're playing, right? And so with all this, people wondering how much cash is actually being doled out, and how does NBA teams manage to scrunch all this cash together. I know there is the upcoming media deal with TNT and ESPN. I think that's already passed. I don't know. That's raising the salary cap. And there's some things you mentioned in the CBA that's affected this. So I'm gonna turn the floor over to you and have you educate me and the viewers out there how the CBA and the inner works of the NBA, and actually how much cash actually be doled out to these players, and how the NBA teams manage to fit all this cash underneath that cap.
Sure. The way I like to think about it is you've got an entire pie, and every player gets a piece of that pie. LeBron James is pulling the biggest piece. He makes the largest salary. Guys that are lower on the totem pole, like Max Christie, who's on a rookie minimum, he's getting a little slice of the pie. When you break it down, when you look at it that way, you can see LeBron's big slice of the pie takes up 40% of that pie. So because his cap hit is, just to use round numbers, if your salary cap is $100 million, he's taken up $40 million of that. He's got 40%. The remaining 60 has to get spread out amongst the rest of the team.
Right.
Well, every year the cap goes up depending on the revenue that the NBA made.
Yeah.
We all remember the summer that the cap spiked when they signed their TV deal and the previous TV deal, and that allowed Kevin Durant to go to the Golden State Warriors because it was just a cap anomaly. The players union back then voted to just throw it all once they got it, they want it all on the cap. And then that just, if you were lucky to be a free agent that year, you got paid. Luol Deng got a big contract.
Oh, I remember
that. It was
yeah.
Yeah, there were some fun ones. Timothy Mozgov got a big one. So it was the Lakers had fun that year. Um, so what the new CBA and the players union, like the players union, they all voted and they all came to their agreement and everything was instead of the cap spiking 30% one year, they're going to limit the cap spike at 10% every year.
Okay.
So if you have 30%, you're making 30% of revenue for this year, you take 10% out of that and you add it to the new cap.
Okay.
So if your cap is $100 million, you're taking 10% of the 30% growth, and you're making the cap now $110 million. So like the contracts that are being signed this year, I chuckle a little bit at when somebody thinks like Jeremy Grant, you said was 5 for 160. 5 for 160, when you break that down, is round number, well, 30, 31, $32 million a year.
Right.
Well, if the cap right now is 100 and I'll have to relook, but I believe the cap right now is like $160 million in 3 years. Or it's like $140 million in 3 years. The cap is going to go up 10% each year because the new media deal is going to be so lucrative. It's just going to be able to spike that much. The NBA is projecting that the next 5 years, there will be 10% increases in the salary cap every single year. So you're looking at a $30 million contract now looks a lot more onerous against $140 million cap, but a whole lot less against $190 or $195 million cap in 3 years. And he's still got 2 more on it. So yes, the numbers look insane right now. And I agree, but they won't hinder the teams that signed these contracts as much as it looks like they will now.
Interesting. So I'm glad you broke that down because, you know, I look at it like the NFL has a hard ass cap, right? So I'm looking at it from that perspective. I'm not looking at, obviously, the NBA perspective, not many people are, because the math is just different. I mean, plus the NBA, it's a softer cap anyway, right? Because you have ways to get around the cap, and you got the bird rights, you got mid-level exceptions, you got all this other math that's figured into these cap numbers and how they can fit players underneath that cap, right? So it's a different math than the NFL, but I'm glad you broke that down. So basically, first of all, thank you for that. So having said all that, like,
do you mind if I expand on something you just talked about?
Oh, go. No, by all means, go ahead, brother. I mean, you're here to educate us, so go right ahead.
You were talking about the mid-level exception.
Yes.
And how that is a tool that teams that are over the cap can use to bring in a decent player.
Right.
Well, as part of the new CBA that was signed, if you're a team like, say, Phoenix.
Right.
Phoenix right now can only use can only do minimum signings because they used just the way their cap worked out. They could only do it this way, like this year. And they will not have access to the mid-level exception next year or the following year because they're in their repeater taxes over top of that. That's part of that's part of the penalties for being over that second tax apron that the new CBA put into place to prevent the Phoenix Suns and the Golden State Warriors from having 5 and 6 massive contracts and still being able to pull in another $10 million contract. They will only have access to minimum level players.
Yeah, because you got what KD, Devin Booker, and now Bradley Beal, right? Because I think Bradley Beal already had a max. So you got 3 max deals on the same squad.
You technically have 4 because DeAndre Ayton's contract is a rookie scale max contract. Granted, the rookie scale max contract is a lot less than the veterans scale max contract, and then the super max contract, it's still less than those, but it's still technically a maxed out contract.
Got it.
So you've got four four massive contracts, and then you've surrounded it by minimum signings.
Yeah. So basically, imagine like having four managers and a bunch of minimum wage guys. That's what you got.
The McDonald's model.
There you go. That's Phoenix Suns right now. Just call them the Phoenix grimaces. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. That's why, I mean, it makes sense. That's why I was always like, I decried the actual Bradley Beal trade, because I'm like, well, who the hell are you going to have for your depth? You traded all away your depth. Your depth is gone. Like, I ain't going to fill in outside of minimum wage dudes, and you just laid it out. So, I mean, Phoenix is going to be.
I can answer that question.
Okay.
All right. So with the way the contracts are built now, we'll stay in Phoenix, for example.
Yes.
You've maxed out all your cap space and you're at minimum salaries. Well, around the league, it's essentially the same thing. You've got a couple of big contracts, and then you've got much smaller contracts that are on the book, on your books. Yeah. In Phoenix, you've got Kevin Durant, and you've got Devin Booker, and you've got Bradley Beal. So you're hoping that the guys that are on the minimum, that are not quite mid-level exception players, because that's about the only contracts that are signed anymore, are either anything mid-level exception or above, and then down to minimum. So your mid-level exceptions, $9-10 million. You don't see many $5 million a year contracts signed. Those are minimum salaries. So a guy like Eric Gordon couldn't find anything at the mid-level. Nobody gave him the mid-level their mid-level exception, or anybody had money that came close to it. So instead of signing for $5 million with, we'll say, the Pacers, okay, I'll take, $1.5 million, $2 million less and go play for a chip in Phoenix. So that's how teams like that are going to try to build in the future. And that's where you have players. It's Christian Wood essentially too. Right. Like Christian Wood put up 16 points, 5 rebounds, X amount of assists. He had, by all accounts, a decent season that does demand a certain contract, but he couldn't find it. So he'll sign for the minimum somewhere and try to repair, because he's young enough, kind of like Dennis Schroeder did last year in LA. He had a really good season and then parlayed that into most of Toronto's mid-level exception. So that's how teams like Phoenix, and I won't say the Clippers, because I don't know how they defy the cap like they do. Like Phoenix and LA, like those teams are going to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting, because like seeing all this is going on, it's going to like affect how we're going to bet on teams in the fall. Speaking of bet on teams, I'm bringing my sponsor for BetUS.com. So listener sports bettors, your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for the 30th year of NFL action. So with the industry's biggest sign-up bonus up to 200%, BetUS offers their members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, MLB, and NBA. So if you're looking for live in-game betting with incredible odds, with daily odds boosters, props, and parlays, we got them. Then how about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? They have that too. So log into ETS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. Use the promo code TKT for the Klown Times as well. BetUS.com, where the game begins. All right, we're rocking along with this NBA talk with my guy, Jared Singleton here. Let's just bring it back right quick, man. So speaking of free agent signings, what'd you think of the Lakers re-signing Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura? If I said his last name right.
Rui, I kind of feel like Rui's being paid off of a really good postseason, which can go one of two ways. He finally got time to play with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and there's one thing he could always do, which was put the ball in the bucket in Washington. So it could possibly work out. The money's not hard to get off of. The contract's easily movable. Austin Reeves, that the Lakers got lucky. And the reason I say that is because there was no team that offered him the max that they could offer him in restricted free agency, plus poison pill it. So, long story short, if you poison pill a contract, it just inflates heavily in the back 2 years of it. So it
Got it.
essentially doubles. So they would have Austin Reeves it would be like, we'll say $16 million for the first 2 years. And then the second 2 years of that, or the third and fourth year of that contract, it'd be more like 32 million.
Damn.
So the Rockets did that on a much smaller scale back in the day with Jeremy Lin and Omir Ashik.
Okay.
And that didn't really work out well for either. So that's kind of how that one worked.
That's fair.
No team offered that. So the Lakers were able to sign them to the max that they could sign him, which I believe was like 4 for $64 million, where other teams were able to offer him 4 for whatever, 90 million or something like that.
Yeah.
So they got off scot-free with a player who can put the ball on the ground and get to the basket. He's got a little bit of playmaking chops. He's sizable. He plays decent defense. He tries pretty hard, and he plays well with LeBron and AD.
Yeah.
So for the Lakers, count your lucky stars that you got him cheap.
Draymond,
It's going to
go ahead.
look, it's like taking it back to how the cap's going to inflate.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident in saying that in 2 years, Austin Reeves is going to be one of the best and most valuable contracts in the NBA, because he's going to be outperforming it so much.
Yeah, I agree. He did a phenomenal job last year, and he's only going to get better after this playoff. So you saw the confidence, brim of confidence throughout the postseason, and that's flat a steal for the Lakers. I'm gonna come out and say it was a steal to get that kid for I say $53 million a steal, but over 4 years. And you talked about how the cap works, how it increases incrementally year after year after year. That's a damn steal for the Lakers.
Yes.
53 mil for that kid for 4 years? That's a damn steal. Speaking of steals, well, sort of, Draymond Green returned to the Golden State Warriors, man. 4 years, 100 mil. I guess they're going to tie in him with Steph and possibly Clay. I think Clay is going to be probably the last man standing, because I think how his contract's set up, I think he's up after Steph and Draymond. But what are your thoughts on Draymond going back to Golden State for 100 mil in 4 years?
Clay is actually up after this year.
After this year. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
This year or next year, one of the two. I know it's fairly close. I know he's next in line for an extension.
Got it.
Draymond coming back 4 for 100 puts him at 25 on the dot million a year. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. It's 25 million a year. You're talking about a guy who 2 years ago probably would have won Defensive Player of the Year had he not gotten hurt. Probably would have. You can always count him into Defensive Player of the Year talk. That's extraordinarily valuable. Not to mention the playmaking ability that he has and the synergy that he has with Steph and Clay.
Right.
Having the three of them together they haven't lost when they're together. I mean, I know Draymond said that, but he's not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, where's the lie, right? But anyway.
It's 4 years is a little rich for my taste, but time served, I guess. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna trading away Jordan Poole gave him the confidence that, all right, this is my team. You know, they're sticking behind me. I don't know. It was just a weird situation the way everything went. 4 years, like I said, is a little rich for my blood, but I understand the tax that you have to pay.
Got it. Yeah, I totally get it. And speaking of Washington, I was talking to Dwayne Nash, Dwayne Nash last week. He's a Washington, D.C. native. I told him he was going to need a guide, a who's who guide, to actually identify me and the Wizards players outside of Kyle Kuzma. I mean, you got the aforementioned Jordan Poole there. Porzingis has been traded out of there already, right? And so who you have there outside of Kyle Kuzma? I forget who all they have there. I mean, to the point being that I don't think um, I don't think people are gonna have a hard time like identifying the players of the Wizards. And before you answer, our guy Kevin McHugh, the second half of the duo is about to enter the chat. So anyway, you go ahead with your answer. I'll throw the same way towards Kevin.
The Wizards are going to be fun to watch, if nothing, because Jordan Poole has the ultimate green light now.
Mhm.
And you've got him and Kyle Kuzma on the same team, so you know fashion's going to be high. Um, I don't. The Wizards aren't going to be good. They're not trying to be good.
Right.
They're Kuzma is on a 4-year, $102 million contract. That's easily movable, and it's going to be an asset contract if he stays more than a year.
Right.
So they'll be able to pull in more draft picks off of that. They're in asset building mode a year late. Although coming down the line are a couple of guys, Cam Boozer, you might remember the last name, Carlos Boozer's kid.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
I forget the other kid's name, but there's talent coming down the line, and I guess they're trying to get to that, but the previous regime in Washington signed Bradley Beal and gave him a no trade contract and got back second round draft picks for him. Like the team's just, it almost feels like the guys that came in were just like, all right, finally it's my team. I'm allowed to just ship everything out that was not mine, and we're going to start from zero. And they're starting from zero. I mean, Jordan Poole, they took on a bad contract.
Yeah.
To get Jordan Poole while giving up Chris Paul, who was on a better contract.
Right.
Like for what they're trying to do. It's a nice rehab project if it works, because it's an expensive contract, but it's Tyler Hero money. If he gets himself back in line, and I mean, I don't think he's a six man. I don't think he's got that in him. I think he's more of a starter, because he just needs the starting, like the minutes, the consistency of the minutes. I think he'll do better in Washington. And if you got league pass like I do, you'll log in at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and you'll catch the beginning of the Wizards game and see it's 75-70 at halftime, and be like, oh, this was fun. And then you'll turn over to the game you really wanted to watch.
There you go. Because no defense. That's what we were saying last week. Who the hell's going to play defense, right? I mean, it's like it's going to be the old school Denver Nuggets of the 80s. Scores in the 130s, 140s. Yeah, but there's a reason why, dude. Yeah, the Washington Wizards / Bullets, I still call them Bullets from time to time, why they haven't won a playoff series since the 1970s. There's a reason for that. Since 1979, there's a reason for that. So that's all I got to say about that.
I thought the Wall Beal Wizards won one.
You might be right. You might be right, but that's like the only one, I think, since the 70s. I'll look it up. But anyway, I'm probably wrong.
Maybe they just gave a good fight to Cleveland one year.
Yeah, because I don't remember them advanced past the second round. I think they tapped out during that time. Kevin, very quick. You like you missed a great education that your partner gave me and the viewers out, soon to be the viewers out there, on salary cap education. So
Long story short, money go into cap go up, player not look as expensive as does today.
There you go. Kevin, right quick, let me just ask you right quick about some more of these free agent signings. Since using Jared's education, the Milwaukee Bucks re-signing Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez is much more palatable for my taste. So basically, it's one of those things where, I mean, Milwaukee had to do it, right? Because who else are going to have picking the scoring slack with Drew Holiday and the Greek Freak? So what are your thoughts on the Bucks re-signing Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez? And Jared, feel free to piggyback on that once, Kevin.
I mean, yeah, we've already seen this Bucks team work in terms of already winning an NBA title.
Yeah.
The team around Giannis is solid. Who's to say Milwaukee doesn't have a run like the Heat and make the finals and give Denver a run for their money if Giannis had been healthy in that first round series against the Heat. I mean, those are big ifs, and I know Miami Heat fans probably would argue that series would have went the way it did anyway. But
Right.
I mean, Brook Lopez, as far as what he's transformed his game into as a stretch big, and Chris Middleton being one of the most unheralded scorers, efficient scorers in the NBA. They work in Milwaukee. They're perfect for this team, and I think that it was wise of the organization to keep things status quo despite the disappointing exit this year, because they still had the best record in the Eastern Conference. They were still the number 1 seed,
Right.
and they deserve another chance to make a couple more runs at it.
Yeah, I hear you. Jared, any rebuttals for your partner there, or what's up?
He pretty much nailed it on the head. You said it. You had to do it,
Yeah.
and everything. Middleton's had some health issues. We
Right.
know that. Maybe he gets over those. Maybe he doesn't. Either way, Giannis has said he wouldn't want anybody else to be his wingman. So you bring him back. They're battle tested. Like Kevin said, they won. They were the number 1 overall seed in the East, and if Giannis plays more than half the minutes in the first round, they probably win that series.
Right. Right. I totally agree. We'll get to Miami later on. But a couple more things. Well, actually, one more thing before we get to Miami. More free agency signings, right? Looking at these, we touched on them earlier when you educated us about the salary cap and how the CBA goes along with that, along with the media contracts. With the Fred VanVleet signing, as well as the Dillon Brooks signing, what in the hell are they doing in Houston right now, Jared? I mean, what direction are they going? It seemed like they would use the past few years to develop these young players. Now they've taken on one really big free agency signing Van Vliet, and then shipping KJ Martin out of town. On top of which I thought was a very promising player in of itself. Just what are they doing in Houston? What direction are they going under Emile Duck or under with the front office direction right now? They've seemingly going from developing to trying to compete, but can this team really compete in the West, Jared?
No. Short answer, no. They're not good enough to speak on what you were talking about. KJ Martin, them getting rid of him. In the last 3 drafts, they've drafted 9 players in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that's bad about having 9 first-round draft picks in 3 years is you can't keep them all.
Yeah.
So they've just got a talent crunch, and they're keeping the talent that they think is the best.
Right.
As for the signings, it's been a lot of Kevin Porter Jr. and Green. I forget his first name. Jalen Green. It's been a lot of your turn, my turn, and I'm just going to chuck shots. It looks like they're trying to bring in Van Vliet, which is a championship performer, and a guy that's going to a good locker room presence, and a guy that's just going to get the offense into place. He's going to be a good quarterback on the field. He's going to do everything, get everybody where they need to be to put them in their best spots. I know he's not Chris Paul or anything like that when it comes to playmaking ability, but he's just a veteran in a locker room that has been nothing but kids. And then they offset it with Dillon Brooks. I don't mind Dillon Brooks on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he shoots a lot. Yeah, he's not very good at it, but Dillon Brooks can guard 1 through 4 and some 5s.
Mm-hmm.
I think if your listeners have been listening long enough, they know that I value defense probably more than most. So the money for the guy on paper isn't bad, but everything else that comes along with him, the baggage, the personality, the boisterism and all that, just the way he carries himself. You brought that into a locker room of kids, and you brought Van Vliet in. I don't. It was confusing.
Sure.
Again, like I said, the numbers aren't bad. The contract isn't terrible. Yeah, it's expensive for a guy that doesn't make shots, but again, PJ Tucker made a pretty good amount of money, and he wasn't really a good shooter ever. He could hit a corner three occasionally.
Right.
So no, they're not good enough. They're banking on. I think what they're doing here is Van Vliet's contract is essentially guaranteed for 2 years, and not all of his money is guaranteed in the third year.
Okay.
So they're spending money now that they have to spend, because teams this year will get penalized if they are not at the salary cap floor, which is 90% of the cap.
Got
The penalty is as you go into the season, you can't take back money. So they can't trade for a bad contract and get some picks with it, because for all intents and purposes, they're at the cap floor, even if they don't spend that money. So they have to spend it somewhere. This is the way they chose to spend it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but who's to say that there were people chomping at the bits to come to Houston?
There you go. I mean, it's all about the money, as Deion Sanders once said. Kevin, let me get your thoughts on that as well, as far as Houston's direction, if they have a direction.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when we were heading into the offseason, Houston was, they were out the rumored player to bring Harden back and all this stuff. I do, I was going to essentially say what Jared said. It felt like they needed to get some bigger contracts on the books.
Right.
And so that maybe, because I'm not sure how many people were going to pay Dylan Brooks what the Rockets paid him, and I'm not sure how many people were going to pay Fred VanVleet what the Rockets paid him. In terms of letting Martin go, I mean, you just look at, Jared mentioned all the draft picks they've had the last few years, and you look at this past draft with Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore, who are both wings. They took Terry Eason last year. So he just became kind of a redundant player, and you need to get minutes for those guys and figure out what they're going to be. Right. I think Jabari Smith had a decent rookie season, averaged just under 13 a game. But when he, had come out in the draft, there were people, yours truly not included, who were whispers of like Kevin Durant comparisons. And, I always thought that was a little absurd, but I do think that he could still develop into a great player. But it's a mix of really good young players, and then you throw in a couple big contracts. I'm not entirely sure that what the direction of the front office is. In terms of going forward, I don't think that they're necessarily gunning to compete anytime soon. I think that the signings of VanVleet and Brooks kind of signal that, it's just like, hey, we need.
They don't have their draft picks going forward either. Do we all remember where those are going?
Nope.
No. No. Do we remember when Russell Westbrook came to town?
Is it about Houston, right? So about Houston,
Yeah.
Houston.
Yeah. So Houston's out their picks now from the Chris Paul and the Russell Westbrook stuff.
Oh damn.
Yeah. So they're now running off of where everybody else were. You're not incentivized to lose anymore to get a better draft pick. Now they're at least trying to compete, I guess. Sorry for jumping in, Kevin.
No, that's fine. It just feels like, they've just got a glut of young guys, and a lot of them play similar positions. I mean, look at Eason and Smith. They're both playing power forward. They're bigs with Sengun, Kevin Porter Jr., Amin Thompson, Jalen Green. They kind of glut up the backcourt. Dylan Brooks and Jayshawn Tate, those two players feel kind of redundant to me. Those guys that do similar things. So, maybe they are trying to compete. I just don't see the wisdom behind their attempt, I guess.
Yeah, I would say this. Fred VanVleet I think is I think that's an Ime Udoka type of player. He has toughness. He has winning intangibles. Obviously, he helped the Raptors win their only NBA title, so he doesn't have to get a drink at all Canada ever again. But yeah, the Dylan Brooks pick. Yes, Ime Udoka wants some toughness as well, and defense. But a guy with a broke ass jump shot like that, you give him $86 million. Golly, again, they'll be interested to watch next year. Interested maybe from a trainer perspective, or interested as far as getting more direction, clear direction under Udoka and Van Vliet as a quarterback on the coach on the floor. I don't know, but again, as I told Jared earlier, man, I obviously chose the wrong one. If a guy with a broke jump shot gets $86 million, what am I even doing? But anyway, let's go to shout out on this, guys. Um, we talked about Miami earlier, right? Um, um, like they're the main preferred suitor for one Damian Lillard. Okay, y'all heard the GM come out and say that it may quote take a while for the deal to go through. So that's code for their posture. They were looking for a better deal. They're not going to jump at the first deal they see, and I don't blame them for that. They have a business to run. Damn the consequence. But to me, I think Dame, if he really wants to be an a-hole about this, he could just sit out. His contract's guaranteed. He can make enough of a stink. He knows his value is going to go lower and lower the longer he's on Portland's roster. And he's going to just screw up the chemistry and atmosphere in Portland. I don't know if that's in him or not. But if he really wants to pull out a James Harden, he could do that. So to me, I think the deal, Kevin, and Jared, you could just follow up to close the show. I think, Kevin, that eventually Dame will be dealt to Houston, to Miami. It's just a matter of what compensation Portland gets back and who the third or maybe fourth teams are in this. Because let's just be real, Miami doesn't have the assets straight up to trade for Dame Lillard, even though anytime a team trades a superstar, they're going to get cents on the dollar at most. So, but if you have a different team in mind, Kevin, where would that team be? What would that team be that would give Portland the best trade offer out there right now, straight up?
I mean, I'm biased, but obviously I think the Jazz have a lot of assets.
Right.
I also think that that's unrealistic. Lillard is never going to play for Utah, and there's been reports in recent days that the Clippers and Celtics have shown interest, and Lillard's camp has kind of communicated that he would sit out if he was traded to Boston or to the Clippers, which, those are championship caliber teams.
Right.
Paul George, when Lillard slotting in there, Westbrook would probably be ideal coming off the bench there. That would be a very formidable team. And then you make the same case with Boston with Tatum and Brown and Porzingis, and Lillard seems like he would be the missing piece to that puzzle as well. So it's more than just championship chasing. I think that he sees a fit in Miami with probably a chemistry with some of the guys they have there, Jimmy Butler and Bam. He probably thinks his game would fit perfectly there as well. And then, getting to be coached by Eric Spoelstra. Miami is where he wants to go, and he is letting people know, or his representatives are letting teams know, if you trade for him, he will not play for you.
Right.
So his mind is made up. And like you said, it just becomes about now Miami having to find a way to make it worth Portland's while. Because, I could sit here and say why Utah makes the most sense in terms of what they have, but it really becomes moot and a futile conversation when Lillard, I feel like to this point, has been very clear on his intentions. His team's been very clear on his intentions. But Portland's not going to accept Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, pick swaps, second round pick packages, and a couple of first round picks I think that Miami has that they can trade outright. That's just for them right now. That's not enough. They're seeking more. So, if they're going to have to, Miami's going to have to get creative. They're going to have to, I don't think Hero is going to end up in Portland at the end of the day. I think Hero is probably going to be on the move to another team that has interest in him with first round picks or a first round pick or whatever, going back to Miami as they try to build and sweeten the pot to make it worth Portland's while. But I agree with everything you said. And, it's been my stance from the beginning. As much as Damian Lillard has given to the Trailblazers and to the Portland fans, Portland's given him well over $400 million, and they don't owe him anything. I mean, a lot of people are waxing and waning, oh, they need to do right by him. And it's like, no, this is a business, and you need to put your organization first.
Correct.
And
Yes.
Even if he's dead set on going to Miami, you make sure that you get the best possible deal to position yourself for the future, for your organization, for your fans. And the GM said, was it yesterday, that he's willing to wait months to make sure he gets the best package that he can get.
So I might have missed it, but when it's all said and done, your gut feeling believes that he'll be in Miami.
Yeah, I think that's an inevitability. Just based on how aggressive his team is being in terms of, like I said, I thought at the beginning of this, I thought Paul George didn't end up where he wanted to go. Kawhi Leonard didn't end up where he wanted to go when these similar situations went down for those two players. They ended up going to OKC and Toronto, and they, eventually teamed up in LA with the Clippers. But the teams that traded them did not meet their demands. However, I don't remember this level of aggression on those guys and their representatives' parts and saying, like, we will not play. And that's what Lillard's camp has said. They've said he will sit out. And so while I thought it was a definite possibility, and I'll say when it all started, I thought, I bet he'd go somewhere other than Miami because Portland's going to try to get the best deal they can. But then when the news came out that he's refusing to even go to Boston or to the Clippers, two teams where I think arguably he'd have just as good of a chance, if not better a chance.
Better if it was Boston. Yeah,
of competing for a title if he went to those teams. When it came out and that's when I was like, okay, it's Miami or bust, and Portland's going to have to figure out a way, and they're going to have to be patient, and Miami's going to have to figure out a way to make it worth their while for this to happen. But yeah, I do think he ultimately ends up in Miami.
All right, Jared, close the show with your thoughts.
I agree with Kevin. I think it's kind of inevitable that he does end up in Miami. I think wherever Tyler Hero goes, he's going to be teammates with Yusuf Nurkic. I think that's if you're the Blazers, you're now going into reboot mode with Scoot Henderson, Shadon Sharp, Anthony Simons might get traded. You might keep him because he is still young.
Right.
I just think that whoever the third team is, the value, part of the value for the Blazers is getting off the Nurkic contract as well. Yeah. So you might see, who knows? Bulls. I don't know. Whoever it is, they're the intermediary that sends whatever it takes to Miami for a first-round draft pick, 2 first-round draft picks, a first round and 3 seconds for Tyler Hero. Mm-hmm. That gets shipped into Portland. Portland ships Dame down to Miami because Miami threw in whatever their first-round draft picks and Kyle Lowry's expiring contract. You make the money work there. Everybody gets a little piece of the pie, and Nurkic and Hero end up in the same place. I think that with the way the cap is going to work in the new CBA and everything, draft picks are going to be valued much higher than what they have been in the last few years.
Okay.
because you've seen plenty of teams just drop off their entire. The Suns hold 3 second-round draft picks because they traded swap rights.
Mhm.
Like they have nothing anymore, and I just don't think that you're going to see teams operate that way because you're going to need the cheap labor just like the NFL.
There you go.
That's my official prediction is Dame ends up in Miami and Nurkic and Hero are teammates next year.
There you go. All right, fellas. As always, where can the people find y'all on social media doing your thing? Kevin, I'll
Yeah.
start with you.
At Kevin McCune on Twitter, spelled exactly like it appears there on my name, KevinMccune.
Okay.
I'm Singleton J21, and in the past I haven't had much of a social media presence. I'm on Twitter and I'm being a little bit more active on it.
There you go. There you go. Just get that active going. And also, y'all, as always, like I said earlier, please do like, comment, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you do not agree with what I or my guest said tonight, because in any event, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. So till next time, have fun with this NBA free agency stuff. The hot stove league is not even close to being over yet. Thanks to Dame Lillard and a few others out there. So but until next time, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the All-Star game tonight for the MLB All-Star game tonight. So take care. Peace out.